Well, good day to you. It is September the 28th. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs if you are new, and welcome you back if you've been here before, of course. Now, if you're hearing this information and you want to know more about it, if you want to see if there's any truth to it, I do think that the best way to really find out more about this information is to investigate it for yourself. I have included links in the description portion of these videos that take you to websites that I think at least give you a good start into investigating this information for yourself. You can see all about Maitreya, the Masters of Wisdom, hear about why they're coming back now, why it's important they're coming back at this particular time. You can read a bit about the miracle signs that I think is evidence and proof that they are coming back at this time. But you can also, and I think more importantly, really start to look at the priorities of Maitreya, the need for peace, the need to start the principle of sharing, and how that will bring about justice and bring about peace. So those websites that I put in there talk about this information in a lot of various ways. And so you don't have to look at it from just one angle, but it will at least get you started. And then you might find some websites that I haven't even thought of that might give you more evidence about the need for peace, the need to help save our environment, and why it's so important that we need to do it at this time. So that's why I put them in there. So they're there for you if you want. Now, I want to thank Timothy Tilton for commenting, and I think Spirit Watcher 178 kind of commented in his own way, but for commenting since the last time I put a video up. And I always encourage people to join the discussion by commenting. You can post your question in the comment section. You can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com if that's something you want to do. Or you can just sit back and listen and not say anything. That's fine too. But anyway, let's get on into it, because I'm rather excited because two people this week commented about the same thing. And this is the first time since I've been putting these videos up that anybody has commented in this way. And they've talked about sharing this information with people in their lives. And it's been quite inspiring, for lack of a better word. But Timothy Tilton and is it Zach Laney? Zach Laney. Both commented about sharing this information with people. Now, they also, at the tail end of that, said that they have found that a lot of people are very interested in this information. In fact, they've even put it as gone as far as to say that it seems like nobody is interested in this information. So I wanted to talk about this, not only to Timothy and Zach for about them sharing this information, but just for anybody who believes this information on any level. Well, even if it's at 0.5%, it's important to talk about it with people. And you can talk about it however you want to talk about it. I would say the best way to do it is to keep it casual and light. Don't make it too heavy. Don't try to ram it down people's throats or beat their head over, and even I would go so far as to say, don't just have a cold conversation with a stranger about it. Let them open up in some way and then tell them about it. But also too, don't be afraid to talk about this in some way with people in your life, really. And then watch what happens. Now, they might not be interested in it right away, but you also don't know what they're thinking about after you tell them about this information. But kind of cater it to the person, per se. So if they're talking about politics, you can kind of cater this information based on that. If they're talking about saving the environment, you can kind of cater it to that or for something like that. Or if they're talking about it from a religious, or they bring up some religious or spiritual things like the end times, for instance, would be a good one. You could bring up, I've heard that maybe we're not going to kill ourselves, something like that, and then throw this out there. Now, you might get all sorts of reactions. It just depends on how people are conditioned. Of course, we need to keep in mind that people are conditioned. This is every one of us, without exception, are conditioned to see the world how we see the world from the very cradle. So it's not something that most people can just let go and listen to something with an open mind. So they're going to react in some kind of way. Now, some people might react in stunned silence. Other people might react in a very kind of joyful way, like, hey, this sounds like pretty cool. Or you might have a reaction about it in the whole other way. You know what I'm saying? But just understand that that's just their reaction. And that's why it's best just to present this information for people to look at and for them to consider. But one thing I have found when I've talked about this information as much as I have on this channel, I've had people comment all kinds of ways. People who can't stand what I say, to I'm going to go to hell because I what I say, those kind of things. But I've also had people who've started out being very much against this information. A few months later, comment, it's a little softer. And then a few months later, they've even gone as far to ask me a question or two about this information. So I don't follow up with people's comments. I don't email them or find some way to get in contact with them. I just let people hear this information, react to how they react, and they can come back or ask questions in the future if they want to. Now, it's not everybody that this has happened to, but there's been a few people like this. So you don't know exactly when you tell people about this information how it's affecting them, and what they're thinking about in terms of this information. And I always am reminded for myself that the first time I heard this information, I was turned off about it. Now, I didn't make great strides to go against it. I just didn't like it. I didn't find it, at first when I heard it, I thought it was garbage, to put it the way that I said it to myself. What I'm saying? It's like, this is a bunch of garbage, right? And then I just kind of put it to the side. But then a few weeks later, I can't remember exactly how long it was, I picked this book, Maitreya's Mission Volume 2, back up, and it started to have the ring of truth for me. And it wasn't just 100%. It was just a little bit, and then I kind of put it aside, and then I'd read a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then it started to kind of like, wow, this is pretty incredible stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that is when I started to really absorb it. So you just don't know, and just be detached from people's reactions and just kind of share how you share, but don't stop. Timothy, Zach, if you're listening to this, don't stop sharing this information. Just keep going at it. And you'll see, what I'm saying is true, about people coming back to you and asking you questions. Even with my mother, when I first started telling her about this, she was kind of against it too. And now she's even started to ask me questions about it from time to time, or we'll have discussions about this as it relates to a world event that's going on or something like that. So, but in the end, I always kind of bring it back to hope. It's going to be okay. All will be well. And a lot of times I think I'm trying to reaffirm that with myself, because I get caught up into what I see in the world today and like, oh my gosh, are we going to get through this or not? And then I'm reminded, yes, I think we are. You know what I'm saying? So when I tell people about this too, it also reaffirms the hope within myself too, to do the same thing too. So hopefully you'll find the same thing too. But I wanted to say this too about the world today. And we talk about, people have asked me different questions about things that are going on in relation to this information. But one thing I want you to consider, if you're hearing this information, perhaps if you even heard this information for decades, okay? I have been taken back over the past few weeks, okay? Because I was kind of getting to the point where I'm looking at all the divisions too, just like you probably are. And it just seems so like, oh my gosh, are we going to... Even just the environment, right? Are we going to be able to solve the environmental problem in time? It seems like we're just on a head-on collision or going right off the cliff, at full speed, right? But there's something that reminded me that's really giving me a lot of hope here lately, and it's in relation to this information. One thing is how much progress we as a humanity has made. Even in my lifetime. But if you look back just 100 years, 200 years, the progress that we have made has been just dramatic. Most of it has been in the technological field and the scientific field and with medicine and so forth. But there's been other discoveries too. Even in terms of how we relate to each other is different than we did 100 years ago, 200 years ago in that way. We talk about the Antichrist, and people talk about Maitreya being the Antichrist or this person being the Antichrist. But to bring it back into this conversation about this, the Antichrist is an energy. And what it does, and the purpose of it, is it destroys the old ways of thinking, which can be painful because conditioning and the roots of conditioning can go very, very deep, especially if that conditioning has been conditioning humanity's thought for thousands of years, like it has over the last 2,000 years. But we look at life differently than we did 100, 150, 200 years ago and prior to that. We see life totally different. We see each other differently. We see ourselves differently. Now, this is just the start of it. It's not the end all and be all of it. But we have come a long way as a humanity, if you really look at it. You can get cynical about it and say, oh, okay, well, we still have the same problems. Yes, of course, we still have the same problems. We still have the same injustices. We still have the same crimes against humanity. We still have the same wars. We still have the same, greed and corruption in all walks of life, whether it's economics or politics or whatever. But there is something else happening, and it's happening within the hearts of humanity, is my point. Okay. Now, the other thing too that gave me a lot of hope is that this little planet called Earth, based on, looking at it from this information, has started to create people who are starting to manifest their divinity more and more and more. And even a few of them, not very many, but even a few of them have started to manifest it perfectly. And they did it on this planet. And then there have been others like Maitreya who actually took a step further and embodied that divinity and became what's called a Christ. Not the only true Son of God like the Christians believe, but esoterically, Maitreya embodies the love nature of God, just as the Buddha embodies the wisdom nature of God. It's quite an extraordinary happening all throughout cosmos. And this tiny little planet that's not very advanced, even in our solar system, has created two. That is tremendous if you really look at it, and tremendously hopeful for humanity. But it also is kind of a little bit of a feather in our cap, like, yeah, we did this. Now, you, the listener, and me and other people, even people in our own lives, are starting to manifest our divinity just a little bit more, maybe not a lot, but just a little bit more than perhaps our ancestors were doing, and thousands upon thousands of years ago. And it's starting to create the world that we're living in today. But there's a process, there's a path, and we have struggles, and we have this, and of course we're still living in a very divided world. We're living in a very selfish and greedy world, but you can start to see it. And then if you look at, even in Russia today, when Putin decided to call up 300 or so or more reservists and started to create a draft of people so he can still fight this war in Ukraine, people are demonstrating in a way that they didn't even do in the United States in the 60s during the draft. And so they're speaking out against this injustice. They're speaking out against this war and it's something that is quite extraordinary. But if you look at it, you can see the signs of hope, in humanity. Do you see what I'm saying? And then if you look at, the generalized interest in this information, right? Of course it's slow going, but these masters historically left the public eye over 100,000 years ago, and they retreated and moved into their abodes, but it was way far away from the public eye, so that humanity would not be able to even know that they're really there. They were still there, still helping and guiding humanity in their way, mainly indirectly through their disciples in the world. And that's what's been going on for 100,000 years. Now, these masters knew that at some point they would have to come back. They didn't know when. It was originally thought it would be in another 1,000 years from now before humanity would be ready. This is an important part to think about. How quickly things have changed, and even their plans have changed based on the progress of humanity. And so there's also been other things like the fact that we could destroy ourselves. But, that was also another reason why they had to come back so quickly. But, since Maitreya entered London, he's already spoken with world leaders. Two that I can name. One is Willy Brandt. Look him up on Wikipedia. He used to be the former Chancellor of Germany. And Maitreya, he met with Willy Brandt, and Maitreya asked him if he could bring, create a panel of different types of thinking from different viewpoints, and not middle of the roaders, extreme viewpoints. So an extreme capitalist, an extreme communist, an extreme socialist, extreme right-wingers and extreme left-wingers, and so forth. And it was a panel that you would think would not be able to come up with any kind of an agreement, but they actually came up with a true consensus. And it was called the Brandt Report. And like, you can read it online. Actually, there are PDF files of it. It's quite advanced, even for, from my way of thinking, because it was designed to communicate with economists so they can understand the principle of sharing. But Maitreya didn't ask Willy Brandt to come up with it. He asked him to bring a group of people that have just much different viewpoints. And that's how Maitreya will work in the future. Not do it himself, but ask of those people who have the ability to do a task in those kind of ways, but also to bring other people into the discussion, and not just come up with it yourself. Have it be a group, kind of thing. So it's already happening. And then the other one that I can speak of was he asked the former King Hussein of Jordan. Now I think King Hussein of Jordan is the king now, but his father, who passed away some time ago, if he could give a little bit of land to the Palestinians, and he did. So if we look at it even from that standpoint, things are already happening. The Cold War ended, which was quite an extraordinary event at the time. But here's the other thing too. This is the things that we still need to work on. The areas of opportunity, as they would say in my line of work. Some might even say it's the things that are really frightening. But commercialization is an evil, okay? And it's an evil, and I can say that not out of any kind of. I'm not saying it because I'm just totally against capitalism in that way, but look at the fruits of what have come of commercialization, and how it's affecting your life. Are you better off because of it? You might say yes, but if you really look at it and dig into it, are you living a life without stress? Are you living a life of pure leisure where you're totally creative? Or are you worried about your bills day to 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 day, week to week to week to week to week? And it wears on your vitality, but it's squeezing everybody for more profit, more profit, more profit, more profit, raising prices for just a little bit more profit. And that's what it does day in and day out, year in and year out. And then we're dumb enough in this country to blame this president or that president for rising food costs when it has nothing really to do with the president. It has to do with commercialization and the corporations that are running the thing. But it's killing the vitality off. But then, and this is coming from my own personal experiences and my job, because I train these people, the young people who are coming into the workforce now have a totally different attitude toward work than they did just 20 years ago. They have no fear of losing their job. I don't know how they're making money, but they have no fear of losing. I wish they would tell me, but they don't seem to tell me. But they have no fear of losing their job. And really what they want, they don't want a lot of money. They just want enough money to live, and then they want to be able to spend the rest of their time doing what they want to do. This is the start of it. But this generation will show humanity how to live a life of leisure. Now, right now, they have been taught for their 18 or 20, 25 years of their life to live only thinking about themselves. So their leisure right now has to do with what they want. But when they start to learn from Maitreya and these masters about how to truly live a life of leisure and what that truly means and how to make the best of use of that time, you know what I mean? This generation will start to show humanity how to live a life of true leisure, of true creativity, of true service. But it takes time. It's slow because humanity is slow going. But the process has already started. People always wait, when is Maitreya going to come out? When it's already begun. You know what I'm saying? It's just we haven't seen and recognized him on TV. In fact, I haven't even talked about the fact that he's been on TV yet in this video, right? I've talked about the other things that have happened behind the scenes, that if you really open your eyes and you look at it and step back and look at it, you can see these tremendous changes. So, I read Benjamin Creme's Master's articles, and he talks about how fast the changes are coming. Even from the Master's perspective, they see just change after change after change, and it's hard to keep up, even for them. But for someone of Maitreya's stature to be speaking directly to humanity on TV, this is an unprecedented time. But this goes to some people who are like, why is he not saying his name? Why is he keeping it in the dark? He's not keeping it in the dark. He's using this because it's not important for us to know who he is right now. It's important for us to sit back and listen to what he has to say. You know what I'm saying? And be free. It's about freedom, to be free to think for ourselves. Do I agree with what he has to say, or do I not agree with what he has to say? And feel free enough to say yay or nay either way. But if you step back and look, you can see that the changes are already coming. So if you're sharing this information with people, especially if they're quite concerned about the problems of humanity, if you start to step back and show them, hey, just step back and look at this for just 1 second this way, you might have a different perspective on the problems that we're facing today. And then if you want to put this conversation on steroids even more, we're getting help even from people from other planets, helping us to keep our environment together until we learn not to destroy it in that way. We're being helped by these masters in all sorts of ways. We're being helped by their group of disciples in all sorts of ways that we don't perhaps see on a day-to-day basis. But the forces of light, according to the masters, always win out. The forces of darkness always lose, even when it seems like it's the exact opposite. So keep your hope high, keep your attention even higher, work hard, stay joyful, love one another. Love you guys. You gotta take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.